So, what is the Igniter's journey? Well, let's back up a bit. So, first of all, it's inspired by the hero's journey, which was created, written about by Joseph Campbell back in the 50s, I believe. And what he noticed is that all the great classics and all the, great mythic stories, the epics that had one hero, that hero would always follow a particular journey, starting with the call to adventure and then the refusal of the call and then meeting the mentors, crossing the threshold. If you look at any of your favorite movies, in particular ones by Disney or, fantasy films like Lord of the Rings or Harry Potter, they all follow a certain structure. And Joseph Campbell's The Hero's Journey is 17 stages. And then Christopher Vogler was the one who went and analyzed films and also noticed that, like I said, these great classics that we love, like even Shrek, followed these stages. He, I believe, had 12 stages, Chris Vogler, in the writer's journey. So I'm a writer, so obviously very familiar with the hero's journey and the writer's journey. And I've also ghostwritten a lot of memoirs. So using this structure in order to help write books and write screenplays. I'm a screenwriter as well. But what I started to notice was that when I look at my own life, and I did write my memoir, I noticed that I would go through different stages as well. Whenever I was overcoming a great challenge or also achieving something that I had really had my heart set on, not something by accident, but where I felt that there was this big inspiration to create something. For example, I produced a feature film called Chained. And in like I said, in achieving the great challenges, but also overcoming sort of the negative ones, I found that I also followed these stages. There was a call, an inspiration, but right away, a refusal. And then, well, I'll take you through all 10 of the stages. So just to summarize, I noticed that as humans, we also go through a sort of journey, a hero or heroine's journey, but slightly different than the mythic stories or the great films, because our lives aren't really that cinematic, even though they can be stranger than fiction. So the 10 stages are a call to freedom. And I'm going to explain these both from a spiritual aspect, but also just evolutionarily speaking, what we go through, there's even neurological reasons why our brain processes things in certain ways in order to have us feel as though we're making progress. So we keep making progress so that there is the survival of us as individuals, but then as a species at large. So the first stage is the call to freedom. And the reason I call it, or I named it the call to freedom, is because ultimately I believe that's what we all want. We think we want to be happy. We think we want money. We think we want security. But honestly, it's freedom that we want. We want to be free from whatever holds us back, free to make choices, free to be happy. And that can mean freedom, like even in an external sense, like within society, but usually just internally. We want to be free of depression, be free of the negative emotions so that we can experience joy, experience love. So I really call the first stage as call to freedom. But right away, what happens? Refusal of the call. And there's different ways of expressing that. We can call it the ego or a fixed mindset or old stories, limiting beliefs. But right away, there's going to be reasons, rationalizations, and resignations of why we should not and could not achieve what this inspiration has called us to do. And that inspiration can be anything from writing a book to I'm going to give a very short example right away, but it's even the short goals are often part of a bigger calling that, our spirit knows it's best if we take things in chunks or we become too overwhelmed and just run away and hide. But also because it's not actually about the external goal that is the purpose. The purpose is the inner journey, and the external goal that we're going to be pulled towards is going to bring up different issues, resistance along the way. And it's letting go of the resistance in pursuit of the goal that is actually the journey and is actually the call to freedom, as I mentioned. So right away, there's a refusal, and that can look like, I'm not good enough. I'm too old. I don't have time. I don't understand. That's a big one for me. I'm confused. So I just shut off. What are some other ones? I said, I'm too old. I'm too young. I'm not good enough. That's really what this all comes down to, is our ego will, or our fixed mindset will bring forth whatever stories we tell ourselves to keep ourselves small. But the ego actually serves a purpose. And, again, we can speak of this in physiological terms. It's our amygdala. Our amygdala serves a purpose. It wants to keep us safe. So it, by keeping us small, will keep us safe. So there is not a problem. And I should say that on the outset of all these stages, that this is something that naturally we go through, and each stage serves a purpose. And you will go through all of the stages, whether you like it or not, or whether you're on board or not. It's just whether or not you consciously go through them and make it an efficient, effective, enjoyable process, or your soul is going to keep knocking on the door and until you answer. And it can show up in very destructive ways. And I'll go through some of those as well. So right away, there's the refusal of the call. And so that's the stories we hear. But what it would look like in your life is binge watching TV series every night of the week, or scrolling mindlessly on social media, even reading, even exercising. Trust me, there's been periods in my life where I was meditating for hours a day, thinking, well, at least this is good for me, right? Like, this is meditating. But actually, I was just escaping. I was just refusing a larger call. So you probably know right away what your ego, fixed mindset, uses to keep you stuck. So that's the refusal of the call. But as I say, the pain pushes until the vision pulls, and eventually you'll experience a glimmer of hope, a glimmer of what your call to freedom would look like. And interestingly enough, this often happens through social media. You might be following different people on social media who are living your dream. And, you could go down a route of being jealous or envious, or you could be like, wow, there's something in that person's success that I resonate with. So that brings you into the next stage, which is meeting the mentors. So again, we do this naturally. We follow people on Instagram, we read books, we listen to podcasts. There's so many experts out there nowadays that this is a dangerous stage to get stuck in, because it's so easy. You're just accumulating knowledge. But if you ever find yourself saying, well, I know what to do, but I'm not doing it, you're stuck in this stage. This is where you're stuck, meeting the mentors. So we want to move through that stage as well. Once you have the tools, enough tools in order to go through the next stage, which is crossing the threshold, then it's important to do so. But this is where a guide is, or a coach, can be a therapist, somebody can be an accountability partner. Somebody is there with you to help cross you into a new realm, because it can be thought of as your old world. This is the way I lived myself. And now I'm making a choice. I'm making a commitment that I'm actually going to go after this goal. So crossing the threshold can be an external thing. Maybe you're leaving a relationship. Maybe you're moving. So crossing that threshold can actually be a physical threshold that you're moving across into something new. But it can also be an internal energetic thing, like you are changing the momentum of your life. You are changing the momentum of your mind. And this takes energy. So there's a period of time where you need to, when you're aware that you're crossing through the threshold, that you're really kind to yourself and that you're honoring that you're going through this big change, internally, externally, both. Great. Okay, and so then the next stage is you're going to commit to the vision. So also in crossing the threshold is where you're going to be creating the plan. So this can look like a business plan if you are, you want to start a startup or a nonprofit, or it can just be planning your life. Like, what am I going to do? If I'm writing a screenplay, I actually plot out not the whole screenplay, but what is my plan for writing this screenplay? So crossing the threshold is going to be different for everybody, but it's making a plan. And then the fifth stage is, now that you have the plan, you're going to commit. You're going to commit to the vision. And this is very, very important because we are beings, we're energetic beings, but we also resonate really strongly with envisioning. So even though there is little, like I've mentioned, envisioning through the other stages, this is now where you're going to commit to it. And by committing to it, you are actually going to fully flesh out your vision. This is a way to consciously go through the stages. Again, this is going to happen no matter what. Look back on anything you've achieved or anything that you've let go of, and you've gone through these stages. There's a moment where you commit and you're like, no matter what happens, I am going to fulfill with what I've set out to do. And now this stage can last, it depends how big your goal is, or it depends on if it's a negative habit that you're letting go of. So for myself, giving up drinking alcohol is, I went through these stages, but this stage lasts many years because it was up and down and I wasn't consciously going through these stages. So I would play with them and experiment with it. But eventually, as you are going through committing to the vision and you're taking the action, the plan you made in stage 4, you're fulfilling on it, things are going to come up. Things are going to come up, and you be aware of this because so often this is where people give up. And one of the things that I was really guilty of is, well, this wasn't meant to be. If this is so hard, it wasn't meant to be. And so I would switch things. And it was very discouraging and exhausting. And so again, the committing to the vision, being aware that there are going to be things going on, you're going to have ups and downs. And in the program, we totally look at a paradigm shift around failure. That is one of the most powerful things you're going to get out of this. But eventually the stakes are going to rise. You're going to get closer and closer to achieving your goal. And right before you are going to achieve it, there's a big breakdown. And in that, a big breakthrough. Why? Because now your ego is freaked right out. Now it's like, oh, she's serious. She's going to like really do this. This is like going to destroy me. And the ego hates death. It's fixed. So fixed mindset, fixed ego, it is fixed. So any change is death. So right before, that's what I was saying, right before there's a moment in a film, this would be the climax, but it's the big breakdown. And if you consciously work through it, there's going to be a breakthrough on the other side. And it's not about like, oh, I gotta like force myself through this breakdown. No, it's like going out inside and you're gonna find out, so much about yourself by going through that breakdown to figure out the root of it. And then by going through it, that's what the breakthrough is. Beautiful, so cathartic. And then stage 7 is the inner reward. Now, the inner reward is that release of what was ever holding you back. So this is where the freedom comes. When you've gone through this, it's visceral. You you have a whole new paradigm shift about who you are. And it is relaxing. It is expensive. It is the most euphoric experience you'll ever experience. And the greater the risk, the greater the reward. This is what they're actually talking about, is the inner reward, and it's freedom. So now that'll bring you into stage 9, which is stage 8, which is the new paradigm. And it takes a moment. You want to take a moment at this stage to realize that you've had a massive paradigm shift about life. I call it the new world paradigm. And so the risk here, or where people get stuck here, and I've done this again myself, is you can get stuck in a sort of spiritual la-la land where you're like, oh, this is like, I just like love everyone and everything is perfect in the world. And I can just like sit on a beach and relax because I understand. I have all the wisdom. But we are physical beings, spiritual beings having a physical experience. So we weren't meant to just sit on a beach and meditate. So we need to then go after our, go back to what our external goal was. Now that you've had a paradigm shift, your external goal might change. So where I said at the beginning, the call is for freedom, and no matter what you're going to achieve it, whether or not you are on board willingly or not, it doesn't necessarily mean that your external goal is going to be the same and that you're going to achieve your external goal. And because if your paradigm shifts, that goal might not become important anymore. And so you'll achieve your external reward. And again, there might be some things in the physical world that need to be done in order to be moved around, manipulated, in order to actually have the external manifestation. In rock climbing, though, we call this topping out, because if you get to the top of the cliff, and you're like, well, I'm here, I made it, look at this, new world paradigm, it's beautiful up here. No, you have to top out. You have to like, hopefully get up on the cliff in order to experience what you set out to do. It's important. Otherwise, like I said, you're just stuck in this spiritual la-la land. So now once you've had your external accomplishment, it's not done. Because if you get, and this is dangerous as well, because you can get stuck in this stage and it's very much, yay me, I achieved my goal. And I have this inner freedom, I have this external goal, life is amazing. But fundamentally, we are not here to have a solo journey. We are here to help others. I fundamentally believe that's what all of our callings are, is to figure out what is my purpose and how can I become free, and then share this with the world. So that leads us to the stage 10, which is returning the mentor. So you now come back to your world, your family, your organization, your industry, or the world as a whole, and you want to share your rewards. Hopefully your external reward, and it usually is once you've had the paradigm shift, your external reward becomes something that is of contribution to the world. But regardless, just who you're being in the world as this free, joyful, loving human being is great to walk around as that. Trust me, we need more joyful, loving, free human beings, but also then sharing the wisdom. And it's very important because, like I said, so often in the world, we people achieve things and then they just kind of keep them for themselves. So yeah, so that's what the Igniter's journey is.